Welcome to World History. We're going to continue our survey across Asia by moving into what is today called the Indian subcontinent and try to talk about the Mughal Empire. Here are your objectives for today. Make sure you can identify both the reasons that the Mughal Empire rose and became powerful, and that you can identify some of the characteristics of the two most famous rulers of the Mughal Empire, Akbar and Aurangzeb. So, let's get into our story. Hopefully, as you remember from 6th grade world history, one of the civilizational hearts, the places where human civilization developed, was the Indus River Valley, which is in modern-day India. The Indus River Valley developed an advanced civilization that used irrigation and built complex cities, but the civilization vanished a long time ago for reasons that we don't totally understand. But know that the people living in what is today India have been there for a very long time, and civilization dates back as long as it does in Mesopotamia, Egypt, or China. There were also some large empires in this area. Hopefully, again, that you remember from your 6th grade world history class, the Mauryan and Gupta empires had some important accomplishments, and so it's important to note that the Mughal Empire is not the first large empire to show up in the Indian subcontinent, but after the fall of the Gupta Empire, it was approximately 1,000 years before the Indian subcontinent would be in any way close to unified. So understand that for a long time, there was no large governing empire over what is today called, again, the Indian subcontinent. Instead, India was ruled by small Hindu kingdoms known as Rajputs, and each of these small kingdoms controlled some territory, and they struggled against each other, as we can see on this map here. They also started to be a Muslim presence in northern India, as these sultanates, most famously the Delhi Sultanate, rose to take over part of India, but not a significant amount of it, especially in the sort of southern and eastern parts. The last piece of background we need, that again, hopefully you talked about in 6th grade, but we need to refresh on, is the idea of Hinduism. The primary religion of the Indian subcontinent is Hinduism, and Hinduism is an incredibly complicated religion. I don't understand it, and I certainly don't expect you to understand it, but you do need to know two important pieces of it: the idea of Dharma and the idea of karma. Dharma is loosely translated to duty. It's not an exact translation, but it's the idea that people are born into these certain jobs, or varnas. You're born into this job based on who your family was, and based on this job, it determines what jobs you do and how you interact with the world. These jobs are ordered in what eventually became called the caste system, with the teachers and the priests on the top, and the business people and servants on the bottom. So it is the job of anyone who follows Hinduism to do their dharma, or to act according to their dharma, by performing whatever job they are born into to the best of their ability. By doing this, they sort of earn this thing called karma, which is sort of, it's hard to explain, but you accumulate karma by doing your job well. And the more that you can do your job well, the better chance you have to be born into a better place in the afterlife, because Hinduism believes in this system called reincarnation, whereas when you die, you're reborn into this world somewhere in the hierarchy of the world. So that's the loosest explanation of Hinduism. If you don't understand it, cool, we'll come back and talk about it during class. So with the background established, let's talk about the Mughal Empire. The Mughals were a group of Muslims who were able to conquer all of India because of their superior military technology, most famously their massive war elephants, which operated as like moving these organic tanks that soldiers could sit on the top of and just pick off enemy soldiers from the protection at the top of an elephant. A ruler named Babur conquered a significant portion of northern India, and then his heirs would expand southward, conquering almost the entire Indian subcontinent. So war elephants allowed the Mughals to conquer a significant portion of what is today India, but ruling this territory was incredibly difficult because the Mughals were Muslims, monotheists who believed that there is only one true God, and Hinduism is somewhat of a polytheistic, although it's more complicated than that, religion. So you've got Muslims ruling over primarily Hindu subjects, which creates a lot of opportunities for conflict and misunderstanding, and most of the government jobs were filled by Muslims, which often left Hindus feeling less than represented within their government. The two rulers that we're going to talk about in the Mughal Empire is first Akbar the Great. He's considered, as it says here, the greatest of all Mughal rulers, and that's because he pursued a policy of religious toleration where he brought in Hindu and Muslim scholars and had them discuss things. He married Hindu wives and also Christian wives, and he ended what's called the jizya, which was a tax that all non-Muslims had to pay. So he made people more economically equal within the empire. He also launched massive building projects, including probably India's most famous building, the Taj Mahal, which was built by one of his successors. And so Akbar is considered great because of the amazing works that he created and the fact that he pursued religious toleration and cut taxes for people. The problem with this is buildings are super expensive and you need money to build them. And so both spending lots of money and cutting taxes causes problems. And so his great-grandson, Aurangzeb, had to try to clean up this mess. Aurangzeb had to reinstate the taxes. So he's going to put back in the jizya and raise taxes, which led to multiple revolts amongst specifically Hindu princes tired of Mughal rule and upset that the taxes were brought back. He then crushed those revolts and destroyed a number of Hindu temples, which in turn led to more revolts, which he had to then raise taxes to crush, which then led to more revolts. And so Aurangzeb was dealt a very difficult hand, but he had to deal with more or less constant revolts and was seen as prejudiced against Hindus because, again, he raised their taxes without taxing his Muslim subjects. All of this significantly weakened the Mughal Empire, which made them vulnerable to foreign incursions, especially from Europeans who were starting to show up at about the time that Aurangzeb was ruling. But that's a story for another time. So that brings us back to our two guiding questions. Hopefully you can provide somewhat detailed answers to this, and when we come back, we'll continue to move further east to talk about China and Japan.